Welcome to Biblical Studies today. It's Tuesday, January 28. I want to think with you about grammar and theology and how we get theology from the voice and tense forms in Luke 24. Just a couple of notes here. I have on the left side of the screen Luke 24 and then also on the right, but different sections of text. You'll notice that I have here some words in verse 16 and verse 31 that are noted and similar. Hoi ophthalmoi, and then hoi ophthalmoi on the right. And then in verse 16 again, epegnomai and epegnoson here. So we have eyes and knowledge similar. And then we have a couple of verbs highlighted here. I'm going to note them in my coded verbal aspect system. Here we have a past time continuous, the imperfect, ekrotunta, and dieknoiktheson, the aorist here. This is an passive aorist. This is a passive imperfect. And these words play into the theology of the text. These grammatical forms don't necessarily have theology in them, these passives, but in the context there is a theological emphasis on God's activity here, even though these are passive. So let's pick it up in verse 14. We have this passive, or rather this imperfect here, homilun. They were discussing, these two Emmaus disciples. And then we have another imperfect here, suna por eueta. Jesus approaches them and begins to walk along with them. And then we have ekrotunta. So these three verbs, all imperfect tense form, but it's this verb here in the imperfect that I want to draw our attention to. It's passive. Their eyes were continuing on to be closed, so they could not understand. Their eyes were prevented from knowledge and understanding. But then by the time we get to verse 31, and they're reclining at the table, their eyes at this point, we now have the aorist, they are opened. Both of these verbs, ekrotunta and dieknoitheson, they are both passive. But this verb, ekrotunta, is a continuous aspect. It is the continuous closing of their eyes, preventing them to see. But then, in a moment in time, they are opened, and their eyes are opened to understand. And it's this passive for both of these, but here in the dramatic sense of an aorist, their eyes are opened, and it helps us to understand God's sovereignty in opening their eyes as Jesus breaks bread with them and they understand him. Let me make a recommendation for you. Dave Matthewson's book, Voice and Mood, helps us to understand the interplay of various features of Greek verbs. For more instructional videos, go to biblicalstudiestoday.com. For information on biblical studies and Greek grammar classes, go to mbts.edu. We'll see you again next time.